I mean, speaking of good systems, I think we both know that none of the automation works if the data itself is not structured, organized, and ready for ML or AI. So how do you counter this? Let's say an organization comes to you and they're like, listen, we want to automate this, we want to improve our efficiency, and then you realize that their data is all over the place. Do
Yeah.
you actually tell them that, or do you just tell them that accuracy is not going to be as good as you expect because, garbage in, garbage out? So how do you manage this as a business owner?
Very good point, and very important question. Thank you for bringing that up. And that's the real issue with everyone, right? We could, so we have two extremes here. One, whatever the data they give, and we give the results, right? And the second is we say that bring the best data, right? The magic lies somewhere between the two extremes. And that magic is that we make the AI clean up the data. Okay. Like, for example, people have databases around the world. They use these catalog systems. They take these, which whereby they have employed a large scale of people who keep on updating the catalog of information. This data is this data is that. Now, you empower these people so that they can just give hints about the data, and like a system like Terno, they can infer the meaning of the entire thing if you just provide them hint. You can say that this database contains the data regarding our supply chain, and we are such and such company. Can you annotate our data? And Terno goes around the data, studying every table, coming up with a better view, cleaner view, renames all the tables and everything. So that magic, that work is too laborious for people. If you think about it, they're typing the names and coming up with all this. It's just too cumbersome. Now I give them the tool. Terno has the module which has the sanity layer. We call that semantic or knowledge layer, and it's essentially you just give it hints about your data, about your company, and it builds the entire beautiful layer about it infers foreign keys, it infers your table names, it infers the column names. It comes up with better column names because column one, column two, column three, it just becomes impossible to infer. And on top of it, it just does all the indexing in a beautiful way so that when you are searching for things, it doesn't make people don't make wrong queries. Not only that, it presents a beautiful view to even the data scientists so that they can plan out the vision. Like, for example, it splits the data into core, core business logic, supporting tables, and then unused tables and things like that. So it comes up with that view for itself as well as for the human.
So let me ask you this. You've worked in big tech. You've worked at
Yeah,
Amazon.
yeah.
And having seen how these big companies operate, do you feel like they require the sort of automation that you're building now? Is that what inspired you in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah. So see, the Amazon will not buy my software because they believe that they can build it. But think about manufacturing company, right? If you go to even very rich, successful manufacturing company, let's take a pharma, for example, and look at their team of data science, right? They're like under source, like one or two persons is sticking around with this. The great machine learning scientist is sticking around with that company just because it's near to their home or something like that. So it is so difficult for most of the manufacturing to afford great data scientists because they keep on moving to Silicon Valley or the top places and so on. And it becomes almost impossible, no matter how much salary you give. And then there is this the entire effect of the big tech and other things whereby like a junior data scientist would love to work with the leaders, so they keep on moving out, even though they are doing really good job. They have the immense data. Still, there is a continuous, you say, movement or gradient of people who are just continuously moving out. And because of which, most of the manufacturing, most of the non-tech industry is understaffed when it comes to data sciences. and 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 that's why there is a definite need of a data scientist, a tool like Terno, in all these organizations. Because uh, Microsoft will say, they tell me, hey, we'll develop our own. We don't want yours. Okay. But the truth is that for the rest of the organizations across the globe, they need a software like Terno.
You mentioned manufacturing, healthcare. These specific industries require certain domain expertise.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if this is also embedded in what you're building. So does it take, because you mentioned that there's the human involved. So is it trained over time to understand context so it becomes a more healthcare oriented result?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the way it works is that when people talk to it, let's say you ask it, hey, my data is usually when we, so you'll ask the question like, when to conduct the clinical trial, we usually have to do these 20 things. Can you do this sort of analysis? We call this analysis XYZ. Can you perform this XYZ analysis on every drug that is there, right? Now, from this question itself, Turno figures out a lot of valuable knowledge. Okay. So that when you ask the same question again, when you say that, give me XYZ analysis, you don't have to define or tell the entire story again. You just do bam. And that's the beauty of it. And so it kind of learns, builds the module, invents and simplifies things for you. And it uses those things over and over again when your teammates are asking the same thing. So if you, let's say, for example, you build a prediction model, right? Say, in case of our customer, they wanted to build a forecasting model, like what will be the demand of their product in near future. So the way we sat down with them and looked at, okay, they want forecasting. Essentially, they need to construct the demand. So we counsel them and consult these customers and say that we will write the first prompt for you, and this is how you write the prompt because they do not know the difference between clustering and classification. They do not know what is a feature. So when we tell Terno that download, get the all sales data for past year and get the climate conditions and other things from the internet, and now bring them together and train a model in these steps. Now, this does it wonderfully. So, the role of data scientist in case of Terno is to give it a beautiful prompt and think about the whole business problem as such, right? Think about like one of the customers we have, they are the largest producer of the talcum powder that people use in India. And India has a diverse climate conditions. Now, there's lots of states and cities. So what we did was we asked her, download the education population data about various cities of India, temperature, past temperatures, climatic conditions, and everything, humidity and everything in every city of the country. Get the past sales data of every city in the country, and then build a model that can predict the sales given given climatic conditions and so on. And then on top of it, whenever somebody asks a question, we tell that for that month, for this month, to predict the demand. If somebody wants to predict the demand for January in this particular city, what it'll do is it will first go to the weather station, get the data about the weather, and based on that, and based on the model and the weather, it will predict the sales. So this entire thing now, once built, Terno has made a note of it. It builds a library of the modules. And then when somebody else asks, can you tell me what will be the forecasting of this thing in this month? It'll basically do that for you. So you don't have to do it or teach it how to do it again. It'll just learn. So yes, as you work with Terno for your domain, for your organization, it builds the intelligence how to do what it build in your industry. It builds the module to do specific tasks, and it learns you can execute these modules whenever needed. So it does all the things by itself for you.
You know, Sandeep, it sounds to me that this part of Terno is so valuable. I mean, if we look at the forecasting
Yeah.
and insights, that's great. But rebuilding the data and restructuring it in a way that is future proof
Yeah.
is essentially what the biggest value here. I mean, that's what no one else I've talked to is really doing. So I really think that's very critical. And so
Important. It's important that you noticed it because I started the entire project as a SQL sealed. And this is exactly what my version was. Yeah.
it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, I guess the logical next question is it on the cloud or is it on-prem?
Good point. Now, here's a very important thing, right? From day zero, my calculation is that nobody wants to send their data to my place. Okay. And maximum people have their own private cloud. And Amazon is now, AWS is considered their own private cloud now, right? So we have three versions of it. Three versions of it. The first version is on our cloud, right? People can come, create the organization, get started, connect the data source, get started. So small companies, they do that, right? The second version is on your cloud. So we have the Amazon image, AMI we call it, and you can just launch it immediately without anything. That's the second one. It is on Azure, it's on all of these, and also we give you the entire of script, and we are open to giving it to you. So that's how most of our actual customers, real customers, basically want it on their own prem. They don't want it on our cloud. And the third version is on your desktop. Okay.
On your
So
desktop?
yes, you can just download the desktop version. Yeah. Yeah.
Is this something you've learned because of your interactions with customers, or from the
Yes.
beginning you knew that this was the best way?
So from the beginning, I have decided that I'll keep it like a web app, perfectly web app, along with a multi-tenancy inbuilt into it, so that I can uh, cater to all three personas. That is my architecture decision from day zero. And I did not plan to do the AMI, the private image. It turned out when we talked to client, they said that we don't want you to use yours, we want to use ours. And that's how it is. So then we realized that the web version is for small companies, like 20-member company, 30-member company. And I mean, you can say that within $10 million companies, they basically take our cloud version. And above that, organizations buy. And in many cases, in very large organizations where individual data scientists don't have the influence, right? They would be using our for their own to make their own life easier. They would be using on their desktop. Yeah, desktop came later. Yeah,
Sandeep, unfortunately, because of the time we have to stop, but it was really fascinating talking to you. I mean, I feel like
okay.
we really covered the main points, and you immediately recognize when someone's been in the game long enough because you really look at every piece of the puzzle. And so I'll be watching, and I think what you're doing is very exciting. Thanks again for doing this.
Thank you, Anthony.